That was different. I wonder what everybody will think. Maybe I should ask them about it. On Nerd North. Alright, welcome back, Nerd North. And today let's talk about Moon Knight. Now, if you thought the show slapped, if you thought the show was absolute fire, leave me a 1 in the comment. Now, if you think the show was bunk or it didn't hit the mark, leave us a 2. Alright, let's begin with the stark differences they draw between Stephen Grant and Arthur Harrow. So let's talk about the Bob Dylan music in the ceremony. I think something like this really shows he's someone who's cool, collective, in charge. He's a man with a plan. Do not mess with this guy because he's cold and calculated. And the broken glass in the shoes. I love it. I love me a villain. I love me a villain who just isn't right in the head. And I think a lot of the times a character like that can be a lot more scary than someone with a lot of brute force. Now we see he's a religious zealot, and I think that can add a lot to the soul of a character. And we also see a guy who's okay with collateral damage after the scales of justice test, so to speak, with the moving tattoo. The old lady just dies, it doesn't affect his conscience. This is another great thing for a villain to have. But we also see some compassion from Dr. Harrow, twice in the show, once in the village, once in the museum at the end, giving Stephen Grant a chance to walk away as long as he hands over the sabre. And when you put all these things together, mix it all up, I really think it's a good formula for a villain. So what about Stephen Grant? We start off with the Oliver Humperdinck music, and unlike Arthur Harrow, Stephen Grant, he's awkward, he's strange, he's shy, he has a boss that's mean to him, co-workers who can't remember his name, he just can't catch a break. He even messes up the date with the co-worker because of, well, missed time, showing he's clearly a guy who's not in control. So let's talk cinematography. I really liked it. It felt a lot like NYPD Blue with the way they did the transitions between the conversations. A lot of the action was up close quarters kind of thing. And you got a really good look at the expressions on the actors' faces. And I really thought they did a great job with some of the other scenes, like the temple Ethan Hawke is coming out of at the beginning, or the pond where you see Oscar Isaac talking to the statue and you see the reflection, kind of showing like there's a dual personality thing going there. It was some really beautiful shots. Even the shots of London were great. And for me, this was something that was really enjoyable, that really separated it from the way they filmed things in the MCU. Now let's talk about the paranoid breakdown at the end. I think the show was littered with clues all the way along, where he had missing time, he missed his date, the fish's fin grew back, he's trying to stay awake at night, he knows something going on, but he doesn't know what. He's locking himself to the bed. He's putting tape on the door. He's falling asleep on the bus to other people. He's hearing voices in his head. He wakes up with a bloody lip. He even gets a call from a girl named Layla who's been trying to reach him for 2 months, and he has no idea what's going on. And this all comes to a head at the end when the lights start glitching, his flat starts shaking, and I totally love that scene when he looks in the mirror, kind of like someone's looking back at him, and then for a split second, it actually does kind of stop and talk to him. I just, chills. And then in a dream type sequence, we see him go into the elevator, he's all paranoid, we have a bird mummy chasing him. I totally love the way that the doors open and it's just a light down the hall. Really great horror aspects to the show. Once again, kind of leaving the audience to wonder, like, is this happening in his head or is this happening in real life? And finally, Stephen Grant runs back to the museum as a safe haven and like, hey, I'm gonna be okay, but it's like worst nightmare possible scenario. I love how they have Arthur Harrow confront him, and it turns out a bunch of people at the museum, including some of the security guards, are actually with him. And then we get the scene we all saw in the trailer. He turns into Moon Knight, he's beating on the jackal, turn around, end the show. Now let's discuss some of the things other people might not have liked. First, there wasn't a lot of action, so if you're used to a superhero movie where all guns are firing, maybe this is not the one for you. And I think some of this felt more like a drama than it did an action movie, which I personally think is great, but it might not appeal to the larger audience. And without a lot of connective tissue, I think this might leave some new audience members wondering, who's this guy and where does he fit into the greater MCU story arc? And it's already being reported Oscar Isaac has no long-term contract with Disney, so I think they might be taking a good look at the show, what type of numbers it does, and how they'll go forward with something like the Midnight Suns. And for me, hey, I'm new to Moon Knight, but I'm really excited to see what they can do with the show, where they're going to go forward with it. I think it's one of Marvel's best so far, but, you know, it might not be for everybody. But tell me what you think. Leave a comment below, subscribe, follow me at Nerd North Drew. And until next time,